Hello, I'm Ken Roberts. I'm a dietitian in Southern Illinois, and I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live today, sharing a little bit about myself. We're going to start at 12:30 Central Standard Time, 1:30 Eastern Standard Time, as the event says, if you looked at the event. So we're just going to hang tight for a few minutes, give everybody an opportunity to sign on. As we're waiting, feel free to post any questions you have, and I'll definitely kind of address through those questions as I go. So it's 12:25 Central Standard Time right now. We'll give it a few minutes, and we'll start at 12:30 Central Standard Time. As we're waiting, feel free to post any questions you have. As you're signing in, feel free to post comments, even if you don't have questions. Post kind of who you are and where you're at. I look forward to kind of seeing who's listening in, and we'll get started in here in 2 minutes. All right. Well, those of you that kind of stuck around and waited for a few minutes, I definitely appreciate it. We'll go ahead and get started. We'll plan to answer any questions you have as we go through it. As I had mentioned before, if you've seen from the Facebook event, first, thank you, Build Up Dietitians, for asking me and giving me this opportunity to come on and share a little bit about myself on your platform. So I do appreciate that. So who I am, my name is Ken Roberts. I am a dietitian, and I am living in, I was about to say station, I kind of get to that, why I would have said that. I live in Southern Illinois, just east of St. Louis, between St. Louis and Scott Air Force Base. And my facility that I work from is in Belleville. So I own and operate my own facility here. I am a private practice dietitian. So kind of before I get into that, let me give you a little bit about my background, and as I go, feel free to ask questions, any questions you have, whether it's about me, kind of how I got here, who I am, or any of the questions that you think that might relate to some of the stuff that I do, by all means. So I am a second career dietitian, and what we typically refer to that as someone that had a previous career a different profession, and then kind of transitioned over into something. And for me, I've had a long time love of nutrition and sports performance. And this stems from my time in the military. So when I was 18, 1 week out of high school, I went to boot camp, and I did that basically. I was in the Marine Corps for 20 years. And my primary job in the military was logistics. So I was with the infantry, I was with Air Wing, I was with logistic units. I've deployed to the Persian Gulf, Central America, South America, pretty much all over the Pacific and up and through North and Southeast Asia. So I've been a lot of places. I've worked in the cold, lived in the cold, slept and bathed in the cold, and I've done so in the desert as well, and in the tropics and around the jungle. So I've been very fortunate. How I kind of got into nutrition, fell into this, at one point or another, I had an issue with weight while I was in the military. And what that means by weight was I was close to or exceeding the standard that the military had set for us to make sure that we weren't what would go on weight control. So that was an issue for me very young. I got married young, I moved out on my own young, and I loved food and didn't know anything about portion control or nutrition or how to read labels or any of those types of things. And so I gained a lot of weight, quite a bit of weight. And I had a leader tell me that I needed to go step on the scale. And it sounds pretty harsh, but of course the Marine Corps is probably one of the harshest services because we're pretty blunt and upfront. But that could have been a whole lot worse. It could have been administrative action based on my weight. So he kind of gave me a warning there, and I heeded that. And I struggled with my weight for many years, and I kind of kept it in check by getting more into fitness. And you kind of laugh at that, thinking I was in the Marine Corps, how did I get more into fitness? But I became a martial art instructor, and that was because of someone that I met that was in my career field in the military, and I saw them as a mentor that I admired. And that person was a martial art instructor trainer, meaning they made people into instructors. And he had previously came back from what we call the drill field. That's the person that wears the Smokey Bear that when you go to boot camp, they're the ones that yell at you. And I wanted to be like that, not yelling at people, but I wanted to have that career path because I respected the person quite a bit. And so that's what I did. I became a martial art instructor. And in 2004, I went to Parris Island, South Carolina, for my second time, once as a recruit to become a Marine, and the second time to become a Marine Corps drill instructor. And during my tour there, I lost a lot of weight. I lost probably about 25 pounds in 3 months from the work that we did, the hours we worked, just nonstop running around training those recruits. But I was afforded an opportunity to become a martial art instructor trainer to make people into instructors. And during that course, which was in Quantico, Virginia in 2006, we started to learn about nutrition as martial art instructors and those that would go back to our units, our companies and commands. And we would be the ones that should be leading the physical training and teaching people how to become more fit, not just how to fight, but also how to become more fit and teach them about nutrition. Because at that time, we didn't have a lot of influence positively for nutrition other than, hey, run it off and starve them, which was a bad way of doing it. So as I got interested and learned about nutrition during that course, during that 5-week course in Quantico, I went back and finished my second half of my time as a Marine Corps drill instructor, and I started to make my recruits eat more than they were. Instead of being hard on them while they're going through the dining facilities just for the sake of being hard on them, I made them get food. Even the ones that were overweight and needed to lose weight, I would make them go back and get vegetables, go back and get certain types of foods. And make them eat the food, because I knew from my training, from what I learned, that if we starve them, they're not going to heal. They're going to get sick. They're going to get injured faster, and then they're going to get dropped from training, and they'll be there longer. So it was smarter to feed them, to train them right, and to teach them all that I knew, so that way they would get sick less often, because when you got 90 men in a small quarters, sanitation, no matter how well, could still, one person gets sick, just like at your home. A lot of people are going to get sick. Infections happen from, if they're dirty or whatnot. So wanted to make sure that they ate well and took care of themselves. And I saw that my recruits were getting sick less. I saw that that they were getting stronger, that they were recovering from injuries faster. And I can recall when that platoon graduated, that first one that I did, the regimental sergeant major, which is like the leading senior enlisted guy on the island, called my platoon the Jenny Craig platoon, which is not necessarily a positive, but at the same time, he saw that I had taken what they gave me was a whole lot of people that were out of shape and should have never shipped to boot camp, and I transformed them with the team of drill instructors that I had. That being said, the two guys that worked for me that assisted me in training, I made them eat. And I told them to get away from the platoon, and I would take them quite often. So when I had finished my tour of duty as a drill instructor in 2007, I made it a point that someday I would become a dietitian. And I searched through, then it was the Association of Dietitians, the Academy, but now it's the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And I had searched through to try to find an accredited program to become a dietitian, because I knew that, in my opinion, was the pinnacle of nutrition. It doesn't take away from those that get, masters and PhDs in nutrition, but we have a different skill set, and I recognized that quite early on. And so I found Kansas State University had an online program that allowed me to work through my degree to meet the credentials, the requirements to be a dietitian, or to be eligible to become one, while I was still active duty. So when I left the drill field in 2007, I went onto a ship and deployed to the Persian Gulf and started taking classes online through that while I was doing my operations out there, writing essays, doing research. Went to Central America. I was doing the same thing when I was in the FARC. Went into Korea and Thailand and some of the Micronesian islands. I was taking chemistry classes, studying labs, doing labs online, doing biology, biochemistry, doing all those science classes from a distance, which was definitely challenging. But being older than the average person going through those types of classes and coming from a military background while I was still active duty, where failure was not an option for me. You had to study, you had to apply yourself. So I would be in a tent in Thailand, working 12 hours a day, and then I would go back to where I had slept and I would study. And, I would do this for years. So I started in 2009 pushing through the degree, and I didn't finish with Kansas State. I officially enrolled with them in 2012, and I finished my degree through Kansas State with my Bachelor of Science in Dietetics in 2016. But to be a dietitian, you have to do an accredited program, and you also have to do an internship, an accredited supervised practice with 1,200 hours in very specific areas. So I could not do that while I was active duty in the Marine Corps. I had to make a decision, either stay in and promote to the senior rank and continue to serve, or get out and apply for an internship and serve in a different capacity. And that's what I chose. So in 2016, I told Headquarters Marine Corps that I was going to retire. And I kind of sent them a notice that prior to 12 months out that I was going to get out so I could retire. And I had to do that so that way they could come back and approve it, because they could tell me no. And once they approved it, then I was able to apply for an internship. And so that's kind of how I progressed through the military, got interested in nutrition, and eventually found my way into an internship. And I did my internship. We moved to this area in Southern Illinois, adjacent to St. Louis, so that way I could apply to an internship in St. Louis after I retired in 2017. And I was fortunate enough for the individuals at Fontbonne University in St. Louis that has an individualized supervised pathway program, an ISPE, which, if Dina's listening, thank you so much for giving me a chance. Not a lot of people are going to pick up a grizzly old man into dietetics. So I was able to do that, and the other interns who were all in their mid-20s had to put up with my old mindset on a lot of things. So I was appreciative of that. But it just also gave me a lot of experiences that made what I was doing through my internship a whole lot easier for me, because I had been through many hardships that a lot of my peers have never been through before. So balancing it was a whole lot easier for me, but also humbling. So when you're changing careers and you've had a long career previously, thank you, Leah. When you've had a long career previously, you have to come into your new profession with some humility. And that being said, is just because you already might know some of the answers, you still have to ask questions. And this is kind of an important part for anybody. I learned years ago in leadership that a great book is Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he talks about you have to have a genuine interest in other people and not just listen so you can learn to when to chime in, but listen so that way you can provide, reflect, and summarize and give them feedback on their story, on what they need. And as a dietitian, that's very important for us to do. But as individuals, we need that as well. And I had to remind myself of that when I was going through my internship. So if you're going to make a career change, or if you're a male looking to go into dietetics, humble yourself a little bit and ask questions. Even if you know the answers, sometimes ask the questions just to engage in more dialogue. It does a couple things. You may learn something, but you also show them that you're interested in the preceptors and what they have to offer you, because each one of them, regardless of how long they've been in, has something that they can offer you. And it also shows a two-way respect, that you respect them enough to ask questions and learn from them, and they also see that you're willing to get outside your comfort zone. So that's going to be very important for you. The field of dietetics is it's mostly dominated by a lot of women, just because of its growth through the family and consumer science over the years. But we're definitely starting to grow, as there's so many opportunities in nutrition. When we think of dietitian, sometimes you think of food service, or you might just think of the medical nutrition at the hospital and the clinical point. But there are just so many awesome opportunities to get into nutrition, and continue to be an evidence-based practice. So when you're looking for things to do, research or academia, or whether it's food service, whether it's communication. Through Fontbonne, the master's degree that I went through was family consumer science based, but it had a strong emphasis on the multidisciplinary of health communication and learning about all the different health behavior theories, how to take the science that we know as dietitians and experts in the field of nutrition and translate that information to the consumer at the level that they're at. And this is going to be a powerful thing for us to do. It requires us to reflect on the biases that we may have, and we all do have biases. Coming from the Marine Corps, I had lots of biases that I didn't know about. So hi Christina, this is going to be extremely important for you to reflect on, those biases that you might have, and then that way when you're communicating with people, that you don't put those walls up, so that you can truly help them. And as men, we have some biases, so it's definitely going to be important for us to recognize those and learn how to communicate with our audiences. Sometimes you're going to be working with different ethnicities, and that's important. Coming from my background in the military, where I have been in the Persian Gulf, I've been in Central South America, I've been throughout North and Southeast Asia and all these different climates and cultures, and learning about their cultures so that way I can communicate with them effectively. That helped out a lot when learning how to go through my internship and working with people of different backgrounds to show them that level of respect that they need immediately. So that way we can open that dialogue up for communication. One of the things that I do in my profession now as a dietitian where I work is I always knew I was going to own my own company, and as a leader in the Marine Corps, I had a lot of opportunities to build places, to build people, to grow people, so that way they could approach things from a very team-focused environment. And there's been some healthcare facilities that I was exposed to through my internship that did that, and some that they were just too large to be able to do that because people just kind of bounced around. So I did see some great teams, and I see some teams that were really trying to work on that, in those learning environments. And I knew that when I got finished with my internship that I would open up my own facility. And during my internship, I was actually I was coaching athletes. I was training myself. I was still doing triathlons because that's something I've been doing for a number of years, running races, road races, obstacle course races. During my internship, I ran an Ironman in Louisville. It just kind of one of those things is the more stuff I throw on my plate, the more focused that I am. So when I opened this facility up here in Belleville, my envision was to be able to work with both community nutrition, meaning that anybody out in the community that needed help with their nutrition, whether it's medical related, whether it's weight management, whether it's behavior. And that's kind of a real big thing that I end up seeing a lot of people on is one, teaching them what they know that it's accurate and what they know that is false information, and kind of softening that blow to them if they've been following kind of a non-conducive path to their health, and maybe reestablishing a healthy relationship with food and the food environment. So that's a big thing, and I credit that to the internship and the master's degree that I was able to kind of work through Fontbonne University. I really wanted to do sports nutrition, but I'll be quite honest with you, you can always learn sports nutrition. I was grateful afterwards to be that much versed in kind of behavior and communication. So what I work with here is, I might see somebody that has sometimes digestive issues, especially runners, cyclists, and triathletes. That's my primary audience, is those endurance athletes. Then I might have a lot of veterans that have issues that were created through their time in the military, and they're carrying those over now that they're separated. So I'll work with those veterans to be able to help them out through some of those clinical issues that they may have. And as a dietitian, we can't diagnose, medical conditions. We can work with medical nutrition therapy, but we shouldn't and could not be the one that's diagnosing these things. So when we know what certain things are, we can lead them to the right healthcare professional, so that way they can get worked through and potentially get something that's diagnosed. So then we can go ahead and provide the appropriate care for it. And sometimes, especially with a GI disorder, with endurance athletes, if there is something that we suggest, it's nice to be able to recognize that, get them referred to the right help so they can do the screens and assessments on them. And then when they come back, we can actually provide the right care and then not be playing a guessing game, which would be a discredit, to our profession there. So, working with those types of audiences, one of the privileges that I also have is I'm part of what's called the U.S. Military Endurance Sports Community. So I will throw that shout out to them, because why not? So USMES is, their motto is kind of fit for duty, and they have runners, cyclists, triathletes, adventure racers, and adaptive athletes. So individuals that might have movement pattern dysfunctions, or might be, have limbs that don't work as well or aren't there anymore, and other types of potential adaptations that require them to kind of change the way that they used to do business, so that way they can continue to, perform in athletics. And so as an athlete with them, I compete as a runner and triathlete myself, but I also provide them sports nutrition education on a monthly basis. And last year I was privileged enough, and I'll follow again this year, to go to Tucson in March for their cycling and triathlon camp. And I can provide, I think last year we had 70 or 80 athletes out there, and I went out there and provided nutrition education for them and helped them through some of the questions that they have. So that's a privilege of something that I get to do continually, not just work with the local population, but I can work with the U.S. Military Endurance Sports members. So those are retirees, active duty, and veterans. which is awesome. So if you're a veteran, you can reach out to them through that. If you have questions, feel free to post questions kind of as we go through. I got a couple more things I'll share with you. I don't think I shared with you kind of my social handles, so let me go ahead and do that now before I forget. You can look me up. My company is Top Nutrition and Performance, so you can follow me on Facebook, and I have a number of events going there, and I like to post information about science and nutrition, athletics, physical therapy, those different types of things on that platform. You can also follow me on Twitter or Instagram, and those handles are on both are the Grizzly Dietitian with a G, and you can look me up there. My opinions on there are my own, but so sometimes they're sarcastic because, well, that's kind of part of my DNA. But for the most part, if I'm posting something, it's going to be accurate information, unless it's sarcastic, and then it's complete opposite. But I'll try not to confuse you in those. But by all means, kind of follow through that. One of the other things that I'm doing is I've got a social experiment I'm doing with a separate Instagram page to kind of see the influence on individuals with health communication messages, but not coming from me, but coming from a pet, because there's a number of people that follow those. So I'm just kind of testing those waters there. So the information is coming out in the voice of the pet, but from a health communication standpoint, kind of just an experiment per se. The information is accurate information, but done so in a kind of a playful way. So we'll kind of see how that one goes. I'm also running a healthy lifestyle program with U.S. Military Endurance Sports right now, and I'll start that. I'm doing that via virtual VTC, so a video teleconference through the Zoom app, and I'll help people through learning about health education, nutrition, help them kind of work through some of their issues that they may have when it comes to barriers that are preventing them from having healthy behavior patterns. I like to tell people that all food can fit, and it can, and you can, be an athlete and enjoy your food through the holidays, enjoy your food at events and social events and things like that. But when you're going out to eat, one of the common things that I'll tell people is you're not there to eat your entire meal because you paid for it. You're paying for the environment that you're in. You're paying for the experience that you're in. So we shouldn't be compelled to eat all of the food because we paid for it. You can get that same burger or same, fish or whatever you're eating somewhere else, and it'll probably be of the same quality. And this is a common conversation that I'll have with people, is either A, leave it there, or B, take some of it home and, save it for, some leftovers or planned over, as Melissa Joy Dobbins loves to say, is, planned over food. So by all means, don't feel compelled to eat it just because you paid for it. You're paying for the experience that you're there and socialize with people. So I'll share some of those things with my groups on the U.S. Military Endurance Sports through that healthy eating lifestyle program, as well as in January, I'll kind of do that same thing with some local audiences there. So those are some of the things that kind of keep me busy. One of the biggest challenges, I would say, let's see here, reading a question here. Yes, that's true. Both my wife and I, so there's a question as you and your wife complete marathons and triathlons. Yes, that's accurate. My wife is also retired military. She retired from the Air Force. So I upgraded, when I didn't retire one of my brothers, didn't marry one of my brothers and sisters in the Marine Corps. I married an Air Force person, so I kind of upgraded there, right? And my wife is a classical musician, and so she follows the mindset that I do with everyone, is that everybody's an athlete and they should be treated as such and get the same level of care. So she does do half marathons. She's done marathons. I did get her into triathlons, and I do coach her because I'm a coach with Ironman University as well as with USA Triathlon and USA Track and Field. So there's just a few of the certifications that I have, and I write all of her coaching. So sometimes I have the coach hat on, and sometimes I take the coach hat off, and she looks at me, and I just pick up my crayons and start coloring again and shut my mouth, because remember that I'm a husband first. So this past weekend we were in Las Vegas, and we ran a half marathon down the Vegas Strip for the Rock and Roll. which was an awesome thing there to do. And she likes to do the sprints in the Olympics, and so we'll have some of those next year. One of the things that I also provide, not just is nutrition, but I do coach runners, cyclists, and triathletes personally, both remotely and in person. This past weekend, I had a woman, you can see it on my page if you look it up, Top Nutrition Performance. Alicia ran the world's toughest Mudder, which is a 24-hour nonstop obstacle course race. I've raced this twice myself. And this weekend she ran 60 logged miles, 60 official miles, but with penalties she did over 70 miles in 24 hours. And one of the things I wrote out was all of her nutrition for the entire event, her laps, her pacing, what gear she would potentially need at different times as a reminder. So she had a script to follow as a guide, not an absolute, but as a guide. So we knew what worked from training. We knew what gear she could do. We knew what pace she was capable of doing. We knew how much water she needed, how much sodium, all those types of things. And she was able to go out there and do that. So those are some things that I'll do for my athletes to make sure that they're prepared as best they can. One of the other questions I have is, as an entrepreneur, what are some of the challenges that I have? One of the things that you have to keep in mind is that you have to stay relevant with what your audience needs. You have to know what your target audience is. So if you're working at a hospital, somebody else already thought of that and clients are coming in. If you're working at a clinic somewhere, you may not be trying to sell anything, so clients are coming in. As an entrepreneur, I have to go out there and I have to find the clients. I've got to get them into the door. The goal is not to get them in the door and to sell them for the sake of making money. I actually kind of take it with the opposite, and this is the military in me. If you've ever seen Miracle on 31st Street, the old black and white one, when Santa Claus was sending everybody to other stores to find the presents, this is the mindset that I have in my business, which probably isn't the smartest thing, but to me it's the ethical thing to do. Is if I can help you, I'll show you how I can help you. But if I'm not the right fit for you because of personality-wise, or because of my scope of practice doesn't meet your needs, or maybe I'm just not experienced in that specific area enough, but I know somebody who could do it better and do it more efficiently, I'm going to refer you to them. And that's kind of what, how Santa Claus did it in Miracle 31st Street, and that's kind of how I do it as well. So I walk that balance line between getting the right clients in the door here and helping them out, whether I'm teaching strength training, triathlon, running, nutrition counseling, or martial arts, or I'm referring them to someone that can do it better than I can do it in the way that they may need it. And those are things that I find to be important in my line of work, is that the client, the patient, needs to come first. And there's a fine line as an entrepreneur between making a sale so you can keep your business growing and helping the client. And just like Macy's did with Santa Claus, I do the same. I feel that if I can help that client get what they need, even if it's not from me, they will refer people back to me and they'll remember that. And that's the way I approach my practice as an entrepreneur. Does anybody have any questions? I know we talked for a little while. If nobody has any questions, again, thank you, Build Up Dietitians, for this opportunity to kind of share about my story. I appreciate everything that you do for the field of dietetics, and to build up nutrition and standing for science. So that's very important, and thank you for that. Again, you can look me up on Facebook at Top Nutrition and Performance. Follow me on Instagram or Twitter at The Grizzly Dietitian. Thank you all. Have a blessed day. Bye.